did you write the history of decadence or the history of bad behaviour? Is that right?
Yeah, I got
Through a
involved
series
in.
of really interesting books. I'd love to. I have read your work, and we'll come on to the bits that I have read. But can you talk to me about the Decadent series?
Oh
What's
yeah,
that?
okay.
When was that? What's that about?
Started in the 1990s, early 1990s. It was a very odd moment. I was a friend who translates novels asked me if I would come to a book launch of a French book she'd translated and read aloud from her translation at the launch. And I said, why don't you do it? And she said, I can't read aloud. My voice is too weak and you'd do it much better. So I just did it. And this bloke turned up, approached me afterwards, and he said, I'd like you to write a book for me. And I said, what book? And he described the Decadent Cookbook, a book about cuisine, but based on decadence. He specialized in decadent literature as a publisher. So I said, well, what on earth makes you think that I'd be capable of writing a book? And he said, well, just the way you read that piece. And I said, well, what does that mean? It just means I know how to read aloud. And he said, no, I could see by the way you dealt with the language that you know what you're doing. I was completely fooled by this.
Go on, keep talking. Yeah.
I was flattered, and I said, "Oh yeah, fine, well, I'd love to." But I didn't realise he must have known a bit more about me or something. You wouldn't do that unless you were a complete sort of gambler of the most reckless kind. Anyway, I did write this book with a friend called Jerome Fletcher, and we had just great fun looking up the craziest food you can imagine, real recipes from the past. Roast peacock served in its feathers with live birds inside, that flew out and so on. Really, really amazing stuff.
Matt's face there, just a grimacing.
Yeah, we did,
I'm reading Tom Holland's history of the last days of the Roman Republic.
Yeah.
And one of the this descendants from these civic virtues of the early days of the Republic towards the end, where there was lots of fighting, and you had Cato, who was the figure of old Rome, the old Republic, who used to get very angry about things like pleasure gardens and celebrity chefs was the big ones, the sign that the end of the Roman Republic was nigh. And one of the delicacies was pig's vulva. Which I remember Tom Holland, the way he writes is so brilliant because it was just very casually and obviously pig's vulva was a great delicacy that was Cato pointed to as a sign of decadence. And fish as well, that was a kind of big thing, sign of effete,
right.
Roman decadence. So you were basically scouring the universe of ridiculous recipes from the past.
Yeah, I mean, they were, and that was great fun because, we discovered that sort of extreme cooking or extreme anything is a very useful research tool. You can eliminate anything that isn't extreme. So, for instance, when we started, I remember thinking that pasta with a cream and vodka sauce was decadent. I quickly realised that was absolutely nothing compared with roast dormice or testicles on toast and all that sort of thing. So we had a lot of fun and discovered that there was this vast literature of bizarre cookery.
Yeah. Today, or like in modern times?
No. This is going back to Roman times. I mean,
Yeah.
there's Apicius, the Roman cookbook has survived, and it's fascinating. The medieval ones. One of the great decadent cookbooks is Bartolomeo Scappi, who's cooked to a couple of Renaissance popes, and his stuff is magnificent, and it's real. And then we did 3 more books. It was the Decadent Cookbook, then the Decadent Gardener, the Decadent Traveller, and the Decadent Sportsman, and that tetralogy, became a sort of history of bad behaviour, really.
So
And I discovered that people who could behave badly, in other words, the very rich, the very powerful, usually do.
Yeah.
Because they feel that they're above the rules.
There's nothing holding them back either in terms
That's
of...
right.
Yeah, there's no downside.
I mean, oddly enough, we invented a couple of characters, Medlar Lucan and Durian Gray, who had written these books, and we invented a restaurant that they used to run in Edinburgh called the Decadent. And people started taking this seriously and thinking that Medlar and Durian existed. And we were invited in 2004 to go to Vienna and populate a restaurant called the Decadent, which was an art project, and real food was served, and we had performances and so on. It was a very intoxicating time.
Thank you for watching this clip from the Meeting People podcast. To watch the full episode, visit the description or click on this link.